Hi! We come to the conclusion of this third day and we only have 3 more days left to go. I hope you're having fun and getting the most out of every lecture. Today we have again a master-renowned speaker with us, sharing his knowledge and expertise. I am honored to present my Italian friend and master dentist, Dr. Mauro Fradiani. Dr. Fradiani was the past president of the European Academy of Aesthetic Dentistry and also past president of the Accademia Italiana di Odontiatria Protesica. Mauro has also been linked to the Louisiana State University in New Orleans in the position of visiting associate professor in prosthetics and is an active member of the American Academy of Aesthetic Dentistry and the American Academy of Fixed Prosthodontics. Dr. Mauro Fradiani is also associate editor of the International Journal of Aesthetic Dentistry, member of the editorial board of Practical Periodontics and Aesthetic Dentistry, and of the Journal of Aesthetic and Restorative Dentistry. One of his important inputs to our profession was his book, Prosthetic Rehabilitation in Fixed Prosthodontics, in 2 volumes, which was translated into 12 languages and published by Quintessence International. He is founder and director of ACE Institute and of Fradiani Education, and runs a private practice limited solely to prosthetics on natural dentition and on implants in Pesaro. Dr. Mauro Fradiani will close this day with a presentation entitled The Prosthetic Revolution. We are all looking forward to watch it. Don't forget that we continue tomorrow and that we start at 8 a.m. GMT with another intensive day.
Hello everybody, I would like to thank you for following my lecture. The lecture I propose to you today is the Prosthetic Revolution, and I would like first of all to thank all the colleagues that are really helping me on obtaining this kind of result. It means to change completely our point of view on aesthetic rehabilitation. And of course I would like to thank Leonardo, Tiziano, Stefano and Roberto to join me in the Fradiani Education Group. So actually what we will have the chance to say today is that Fradiani Education, of course, is very involved on courses and conferences around the world, but mainly what they have done, I think is a great job that we have done together with my friends, is the app that we have created a few months ago on the prosthetic treatment plan. We will discuss a bit about that later. And of course also are really struggling to finalize another book that will be important book on the field of aesthetic dentistry. I'm sure about it. So let me start my presentation today looking at the tradition. That is a case that was made more than 20 years ago, That was really an interesting case because it was a completely worn out dentition, and you see that a lot of attrition, the edge-to-edge position was not easy to be finalized in the proper way, but we were quite happy about the finalization aspect in 94, so 22, 23 years ago. And you can see that we selected to be supragengivally located in the lower arch anteriorly because the patient didn't show at all. And we finalized the case. Also, the black and white picture of the X-ray shows a nice final outcome. 22 years later, the situation is that we changed, especially from the biological aspect. The thin periodontal biotype that didn't allow us to keep the margin in the proper way, but still, the entire rehabilitation was still there, and also, as is shown also on the X-rays, everything seemed to work very well, even after 22 years in service. So, we were quite happy. The patient didn't complain about the recession that we can see on the left cuspid, on the upper jaw, and also in some other area on the lowers. But what we really didn't like at all, retrospectively, so more than 20 years later, was, of course, what was the situation of the 12 anterior upper-lower teeth that were completely, in some way, destroyed because we have devitalized all the teeth. There was no need at that time to do it. Of course, today we will do differently. That's the reason why we started with my colleagues the kind of thinking process. It means a process that allows us to think before doing. It means that the treatment plan sequence will be very, very important in order to really understand what to do. So we started to think about how to minimize our intervention. And we call the MIPP procedure. It means the minimally invasive prosthetic procedure. That will be a new word for us. As you can see, the definition can be the following: a prosthetic procedure with the aim of saving as much tooth structure as possible, maintaining enamel for predictable bonding. We have also a lot of experience on that already, more than 10-12 years in service, but the first article we have published was in 2012. That was in Periodontics and Restorative Dentistry Journal, and the title was The Aesthetic Rehabilitation of Severely Worn Dentition with Minimally Invasive Prosthetic Procedure. It means MIPP. And then together with Leonardo Baccherini, we also classify our MIPP in MIPP 0, 1, 2, and 3. And that is the article that we have published in QDT 215. And after that, in 2016, another article came out at this point on the aesthetic rehabilitation with the worn dentition, again with the MIPP. So we have done a lot of cases already, and we would like really to share with you our experience on that field. And we will talk about only MIPP 3. It means when one or two arches are involved in this kind of aesthetic rehabilitation. We call this the prosthetic revolution, especially from the prosthetic point of view, was a complete revolution, considering that 12 years ago when we started, normally most of the dentists still was working in a very traditional way. So let me show you this case. This case is a lady that is from Germany and has this kind of problem, that is a chronic systemic autoimmune disease that unfortunately created the absence of the saliva, and the saliva, as you know, is protecting our teeth a lot. So the pH became lower, around 5, 5.2. So it was really complicated because, as you've seen in the picture, we have a lot of dentin exposure, very big wear. So that was the time in which we started to really have the thinking to change our normal way, our traditional way to rehabilitate patients. So we think at this point differently. We thought differently and start to play with the vertical dimension of occlusion and, of course, the CR position of our mandible. So it's a long story. We don't want to, of course, go into this topic about the CR. Many people believe on that. Many people don't believe it. And of course, the definition still on the glossary of prosthodontic terms are really controversial. But what we know that with a certain kind of technique, like bimanual manipulation or like a Lucia jig or leaf gauge, we have the chance to have a reproducibility of the position of the mandible each time, as McKee shown in '97 December article on JPD, or as it possible to find in our courses when you do the master course, every participant are able to reproduce the same position. And that is a must prosthetically. We cannot avoid to have really this kind of important, a repeatable position of our mandible. So that's beside also the decrease of muscle activity, talking about the lateral pituitary activity that is completely decreased, and that represent a border position for us. But now, once we have already describe and explain to you why we keep this CR position as an important step of our rehabilitation, now we ask ourselves, what about the vertical dimension of occlusion? And the question that we ask ourselves are, is it possible to change it? What happens when we increase it? And how to decide the amount of increase and how to test the increase? All these questions are absolutely important questions, and we need an answer. We need an answer of all these steps. First of all, about the possibility to increase the VDO. We have a review article by Abduo that was published in 2012 that's showing you that if needed and when is indicated, we can increase the VDO up to 5 mm without having any kind of sign or symptoms. At least is something that could happen, like having some sign or symptoms, but in a couple of weeks it will go away. So it's considered this point on this review article by Abduo a kind of safe and predictable procedure, that of increasing the VDO within certain limits, up to 5 mm. Some people were complaining about the fact that probably on the TMJ something happened, but Jeffrey Okeson shows in this article, quite a recent one, 2015, that there is no indication that permanent alteration of the vertical dimension will produce any kind of long-lasting temporomandibular disorder symptoms. So it means that the patient will adapt rapidly to the moderate change in VDO, again, within 5 mm. But what is also interesting with our group, we have the chance to really test 100 rehabilitation, following up from 1 to 10 years. Of course, we have data collection, clinical aspects, and post-operative evaluation. That's very important to understand what are the final outcome of this work once you increase the vertical dimension, what are the problems that you can encounter. That we will see very, very important. That is very important. That was submitted for publication, but just a few days ago, we had the acceptance of this article that will be published in the International Perio Restorative Journal. So, what about the VDO increase in CR position? What is the average of increase? On fully TIF-supported cases, we had around 3.3 millimeters anteriorly of the increase of VDO. Once you have talking about implants, with full implants supported, we had 5.4 millimeters, so much higher, because of course most of the time we have lost completely all the upper and lower teeth, so we are really have no references, so that's the reason why you can have better, higher measurement or higher values of the difference in the vertical dimension between before and after. And that is the mix supported. It means the group in which we have a mix between teeth and implants. Even one implant on all the full mouth rehabilitation is considered a fixed support, even though you have just one implant. So we have the increase of 3.6 millimeter that is close to the fully teeth supported measurement that was 3.3. So 3.5 is a normal way when you have teeth. More than 5 millimeters sometimes is when you have a fully edentulous patient with only implants. So let me now consider with you what happened after a couple of weeks, because you see that we have different kind of potential problems. We would like to understand if the problem can be present or not. According to what we have seen in our 100 rehabilitation study, we see that only 17% of patients complain about something. It means that 83% of them didn't complain at all about the situation, the clinical situation, after having increased the VDO around 3 to 3.5 millimeter. So what it means that at this point, what are the adverse events within a couple of weeks? And you see that most of the people, 7 among 100 people, among 100 cases, were complaining about the speech. And we know that when we increase the VDO, the first letter that is involved on that is the S sound, that is considered the closest speaking space normally. If you increase the VDO, sometimes you have a kind of lisping or problem in pronunciation of letter S. Another interesting fact that 5 people also were having some difficulties on chewing. But in a couple of weeks later, between 2 to 8 weeks, all these problems were decreased, and the only one that still was present in some way was the muscle and joint fatigue. Just 3 people among 100 had this kind of problem. But the last control, as you can see, everybody have not complained anymore about any sign or any symptoms about that. So now the question is, why we want to increase the VDO? Why we discuss about that? And the answer is really an easy answer, because we need a space for the restorative material in order to avoid to kill even more the teeth that are already destroyed by the wear, because most of the time we have really worn out dentition around it. So in this case, we have created automatically the space for restorative material without having the need 100% to really prepare the teeth with your burrs. So at this point, increasing the VDO, you can really optimize the anterior teeth relationship between upper, lower, anterior teeth with a nice ratio between overbite and overjet, reestablishing at the same time a perfect occlusion also on posterior area and of course on anterior area with the anterior guidance that is excluding the posterior teeth during excursive movements. At the same time, most of the time you can avoid completely the need of surgical crown lengthening procedure and endodontic treatment plus post and core that was traditionally done by many dentists. So this is like a initial try-in of how much we have to increase the VDO, then we increase it a little bit more. You see a lot of dentin on the back aspect on the back side, but you see how much enamel is still present interproximally on all the teeth. So our goal was not that to prepare the teeth to devitalize and to put the post and core. Our goal was that to increase the volume at this point of the lower posterior teeth through this composite restoration, recreating normal kind of volume, more or less, and then re-preparing the teeth very slightly to keep all the enamel interproximally, and maybe extending also our tooth preparation a little bit more on the lingual part in order to catch more enamel, to have more enamel in our final restoration. So there were reason was in this case mostly erosion, where not the protection of the saliva, as I said, because the patient has this problem that we remember. Maybe you have also a combination between attrition and abrasion, but what we really like to really emphasize is that we have to increase the VDO in this case in center relation position. So finally we increase about 4 millimeters anteriorly. It means more or less a couple of millimeters in the last molar, that is the worst scenario, where the increase of the vertical dimension will be minimal. Of course, half size than the anteriors. We can test that with mock-up. Of course, we have an additional procedure in this case, and then you can optimize the function, creating the perfect occlusion and also the perfect disclusion in order to recreate the anterior guidance. Once we have created this kind of final situation with mock-up, that is important because you can test this new VDO. You can test for 1 hour, for 1 day, for a week, even for 1 month, having the patient under control in order to understand if everything works well in the patient mouth. So what happens when increase it? As I said before, in our study, 83% of people didn't realize at all that we have changed the video, didn't have any kind of sign of symptoms. As I said, only 17%, as you remember, they have some sign and symptom that goes away after a while. So, at this point, we have increased the video, you can create a calibrate reduction of the teeth. And most of the time when you cut properly, in this way, you will see that underneath you have not the teeth even touched because you have created spaces. So the space that you need for your ceramic work is already in the increase of video that you have done. But let me better explain this aspect. So we are talking about MIPP, minimal invasive prosthetic procedure technique, and I would like to tell you that the main goal is that to maintain the tooth structure. So the vitality, but also the tooth structure itself. And we can play with that through three different kind of steps. First of all, the increase of video. Second, the reduced ceramic thickness. I try to explain to you how. And last but not least, to preserve enamel in order to have the optimal bonding procedure as possible. So let me start with the increase of video. And let me show you again, once you increase the video anteriorly around 3 millimeters, you have in the second molar posteriorly maybe a kind of 1.5, 1.6 millimeter of space. It means dividing in two arches, more or less approximately 0.8 millimeter per arch. So now, when you look at this, intact molar that was cut in the middle, you can see that we have a dotted line that is separating the dentin to the enamel. Enamel is quite thick, but only the case where you have intact tooth, but never happened, unfortunately, to have this kind of situation. But let me better explain. Once you have more or less 1.5 millimeter of enamel, and then you have a dentin, and once you prepare your teeth accordingly to what all the text, all the advertising, all the companies say to you, it means 1.5 or 2 millimeter occlusal reduction. That means that you will kill completely even a very virgin and intact tooth because you will remove all the enamel present. So that is not what we would like to do it. That is really something bad. So what we need to do is to reduce this kind of, invasion and invasiveness of our tooth preparation. So let me better explain to you. First of all, if you have the original video, you cut 1.5, you arrive to the border between dentin and enamel, even in the normal intact tooth. But if you increase the video, like you see in the right side, you have the chance to separate the posterior teeth of 1.5, 2 millimeters. At this point, still preparing 1.5 classically, you come far away from the border between dentin and enamel. But as I said, unfortunately, not always we have so much thickness of enamel. We have reduced enamel. So I need some more stuff. What I need is, after having improved the situation, the next step will be probably to reduce or to avoid, even better, to prepare the occlusal surface. At this point, it will be very important to reduce the ceramic thickness of our ceramic work. So let me show you. Still today, many companies say to you that you should prepare 1.5 in occlusion. That to me is really too much, especially considering that if you have the chance to really create a very thin thickness of the ceramic with a quite high strength value, like lithium disilicate, for example, that is up to 400 megapascal in flexural strength rate in vitro, that will be more than enough. The same company that produced the lithium disilicate tells you that you can have 1.5 full contour on lithium disilicate at 400 megapascal, or having the bilayer solution in which we have 0.8 of coping of 400 megapascal lithium disilicate plus 0.7 in a layer ceramic over that is like 90, 100 megapascal, very fragile. So we know that, of course, the success of the second option, the bilayer solution, is not because we have layered over the coping a 0.7 of fragile ceramic, but it's because the monolithic, the coping strength that is much stronger than the layered ceramic over the coping. So our thought was that time, why I could not really leave 0.8 of monolithic material into occlusion instead of having 0.8 plus 0.7 or 1.5 completely in lithium disilicate. We believe that even a reduced thickness of lithium disilicate like 0.8 was really enough, because at this point you can have a double action. Increasing the VDO, we have actually decreased the need to really cut the tooth. Plus, if the occlusion reduction is decreased from 1.5 to 0.8, automatically you have the chance to really avoid to touch the tooth. It means that you can also avoid, even in the worst scenario, that is the second molar, where the space between the teeth are reduced, to really avoid to touch the teeth at all. So if you have not full enamel, but even 50 or 60% of enamel, is still good, because your body precision will be great thanks to the presence of the enamel. You don't cut at all. You just refine, but you don't really cut as you have done in the past. In this way, again, you minimize or you even avoid to reduce the tooth anymore, because you are out of the control completely, as you have seen in this kind of pain. So at this point, you have to ask yourself, would I love to have all monolithic restorations everywhere, or you can still use the bilayered restorations? And I can tell you, on anteriors, maybe you can still use the bilayered to have the best aesthetic result, but without any other option, I would love to have all posteriors just stained, maybe with the reduced thickness, and the reduce of the thickness will be according to the enamel presence. Because if I have all enamel, I can even reduce more than 0.8, more than 0.5, maybe have no limits. Sometimes you do tabletops of 0.2 or 0.3. That's still possible. Of course, if you have less enamel, it is better to have more thickness, up to 0.8. So posteriorly are just monolithic, anteriorly can be layered. So, but the key point is the enamel preservation, thanks to the increase of VDO and thanks to the reduced thickness of the ceramic work. So anteriorly we said we can layer, but please don't forget it. If you are the maximum resistance, maximum strength, you can keep the lingual part of the upper anteriors in the lingual part, I'm saying, of course, of lithium disilicate, just giving some space backally for the layering process. You can combine in this way the maximum strength to avoid chipping on the incisal edge, plus some aesthetic result, because you can layer part of the layering portion over the coping on the back side. And in this way you have supported portion and you combine aesthetic and strength. So then, of course, you have an etchable ceramic work. You can etch for 20 seconds and then you put the silent. But at this point, after having tried for myself the first years, certain point Petra Guess shows an article in which shows that the 0.5 thickness of the ceramic work can exhibit significantly higher failure loads at the supporting tooth structure was enamel, predominantly enamel. So it means that if you have enamel underneath, you can reduce the ceramic thickness. It is another article showing more or less the same thing. Once it's bonded on enamel to enamel, the load-bearing capacity of lithium disilicate can approach 75% of that of zirconia. That is more than 1,000 megapascal. But of course, our choice was that of lithium disilicate, because lithium disilicate is an etchable ceramic, differently from the high-strength ceramic like zirconia. And of course, if you have an etchable ceramic, you can then, of course, etch the enamel and also have an adhesion on dentin, thanks to this kind of technique. We're still using the three-step technique in order to achieve the best result. So, last step, maintain tooth structure, thanks also to the enamel preservation in the bonding procedure that we use. And that is what we do. Of course, posteriorly, we try to achieve the best result, keeping in place the rubber dam all the time and to keep as much enamel as possible. But also anteriorly, we try to have enamel 100% all the time. And the preparation design was changed over years, of course, more and more in order to keep enamel as much we could. Talking about two preparation modalities, I can show you that was on anteriors what happened in 90s. More or less that are the thickness that were needed. Then we start to reduce thanks to the more strength of the ceramic thickness, the ceramic material. But today, more or less, we have this kind of preparation. It means we try to remove only the undercuts. At this point, only removing the undercuts, we can still keep enamel most of the time 100%. So, more or less, the concept is the following. On the back side of this restoration, you see that we have cut with your burr within enamel, so we never reach the dotted red line. But on the lingual part, you see that we have not touched at all this enamel that's still present there because we have increased the video. Increasing the video, we have created space between the upper and lower teeth anteriorly. So at this point, then you keep enamel that was present there. We have a netzable ceramic work, a netzable ceramic material, plus a netzable enamel. At this point, you can create a really incredible, great sandwich between the two structures and creating a kind of a new virgin tooth. This is a case that was made years ago, but already, even though we have cut it into approximately, you see that on the back side we have enamel 100%, and the lingual side we have no preparation in the palatal area, again, because we had already a space available there, because we have increased the video. At this point, we have all the enamel that was present before is still there. All the dentin that was present before, like the sizal edge, you see some dentin. At this point, that will be, anyway, bonded in the proper way. So, you have enamel practically around all these four teeth, like 95%. And these preparation modalities completely changed over years. As you see, the same dentist, myself, in 88, were preparing the teeth with a big shoulder and with 9 post and core after endodontic treatment precision and after surgical crown lengthening procedure. And today, you see that after having rebuilt with the composite all the back side of the lower and the upper teeth, we still kept enamel and we still kept actually the anatomy in some case of the molar and the bicuspid on the upper and the lower jaw, having the chance to save to structure as much as we could, and having the chance also to avoid to devitalize teeth. That was the normal procedure that has been done in the past from myself, but also from many other dentists. So we're ready to bond the 28 restorations at this point. Upper and lower, 14 in the upper, 14 in the lower, and that's in the mouth. We, of course, have the chance to see monolithic material on posterior from bicuspid to molars, and the partially layered ceramic work on anteriors, upper and lower the same. It means that we have created some more aesthetic result on upper lower anteriors, and we kept just monolithic on posterior area. So that's what the before and after, thanks to the ability of our dental technician and ceramist Giancarlo Barducci, and the use of lithium disilicate material. So what I think is the best picture that I can show you is the black and white picture showing that was vitality of all teeth, upper and lower. We have achieved also very nice occlusal stability, right and left side, disclusion of posterior teeth through the anterior guidance. You see the space that was open on the posterior sectors, and also, of course, a nice improvement aesthetically from the beginning to the end, right side, left side, with a nice improvement. So the question is, that was a complicated case, was a problem of autoimmune disease with no saliva and no protection. What happened over here? And I think if you are quite careful about all the fit of your restoration, that could be the result after 9 years, in which you see how blended are our teeth, our restoration over the gingiva, underneath the gingiva, sorry. At the same time, if you look, the final X-ray shows a very good maintenance 9 years after. That is a very nice final outcome, in my opinion. We have created a very nice outcome for our patient that finally can really smile again in the proper way with a very, very good result. So let me show another case. That was actually the first case we made more than 11 years ago. And you see that this is a classic case in which you see you have a lot of erosion, abrasion, attrition is a combination, is multifactorial etiology. But again, in order to understand what to do it, you can say, yeah, if you look at the middle picture, you can say I can do veneers on the upper, veneers on the lower. Or on the other two lateral slides, you can say, oh, I can do onlays, for example, that is a conservative approach. It's considered as a conservative approach. But look, you have a dentin already exposed on occlusion. And if you follow the normal rule, you have to actually cut 1.52 millimeter from that part already shown dentin there, more down to the apical direction. It means that you easily can really approach the pulp underneath. So that will be never conservative enough. So the only way to be conservative is what? That to increase the vertical dimension of occlusion in central relation position. And that was done, just to really summarize very, very, very rapidly. That was, again, a case made through the increase of vertical dimension. Again, we had a chance to see that at the beginning we had the two devitalized teeth on the left side, upper, lower, molars, but all the remaining teeth are still vital. And that was a minimal invasive prosthetic procedure. Just to summarize, is, first of all, VDO increase, putting the patient in CR, giving back to the patient anterior guidance, and then preserve the enamel with true preparation modalities, reduce the ceramic thickness, and optimize the bonding technique that you can use it. And 10 years later, that could be the final result, still maintaining all that we have done before. And you can also observe time of delivery with the normal traditional picture that was scanned with the traditional camera, and 10 years after with the new camera that is digital camera. I don't want to show that for that, just to explain you that we have used different kind of cameras, but just to tell you that if you look carefully, this area are more worn out than the beginning situation, 10 years before. But that is quite physiological one. It's normal to have it. It's not a big problem. Actually, it's a quite natural kind of wearing that we have at this point to the cuspid guidance. Just to explain to you that is a normal way how it's working. And now still have the chance to have the exclusion of posterior teeth through this cuspid guidance. So still in a nice, in a nice way. It continues that way. So at this point, looking at these two cases after 10 years in service, I would like to tell you what are, few tips that we can give to the practitioner. First of all, of course, use a monolithic material at least on posteriors. We could do also on anteriors, and you, of course, can avoid practically completely any chipping at all. So you really have the survival rate that approaching the 100%. So second step will be, of course, to keep as much enamel as possible. That is achievable, again, if you increase the VDO and you reduce the ceramic thickness. And then use a predictable bonding procedure. That's very important. We're still using the two-step technique. And last but not least, please don't forget it. Even though today is not a really fashionable topic, please create a proper occlusion pattern. That can make the difference in many, many cases. So now, let me show you other cases. Years after, 8 years after, before and after having increased the VDO. Other case, 6 years after having increased the VDO again. Other case, 5 years after having increased the VDO. And again, 4 years after. That's just few cases of what you have done in the past. You have done a lot of cases. But the most important case is this. What happened is, why I'm showing this kind of case which should be involved the maybe orthodontist, maybe the orthodontic surgeon. Why I'm showing you? Because this is a classic case in which was complicated to achieve a very good result. and without having the chance to work with the orthodontic surgeon and the orthodontist. But sometimes it happens that the patient cannot organize this situation like that. The patient was coming from abroad, and we ask ourselves, can we do something just prosthetically? That was the question that we asked ourselves. I have to keep short this presentation, but I just want to tell you that in this case, after having analyzed the case, we started to think just increasing video 3.5 millimeter anteriorly, only 3.5 millimeter anteriorly, we had the chance to change completely the initial case through the WhatsApp that Giancarlo Barducci did for us. And we have an additional volume. So with the WhatsApp, we have added upper and lower completely. It means that is an additional volume that has to be created in this case. And we have increased the video on the mockup 3.5 millimeter, no more than that. So it's not incredible amount, but you can still observe already from this mockup the difference from the beginning that we are completely overcoming the problem that we had the patient had before. And now we have had reverse occlusion before, now is normal occlusion. So we have also avoid to touch the lingual part of our upper teeth, no preparation in the palatal area, and no anesthesia needed. So that was a case that was done without doing any anesthesia at all. And that's what the incredible result we obtained without doing any kind of surgical procedure and without having any anesthesia on the patient. So again, increasing the video, putting the patient in CR, recreating to the patient an anterior guidance, preserving enamel, reducing the ceramic thickness, and creating a nice bonding procedure. And that is a nice final outcome 3 years later with the change of the smile that was completely different from before. We have also probably completely changed the confidence of the patient that are much safer when she smiles than before. And that is creating a new person in some way. So I've shown some cases of what we can do today with MIPP technique. But beside that, I would like to tell you that each case you've seen talking about full mouth rehabilitation were possible to be finalized in the proper way thanks to data collection and to data processing in order to be able to do a kind of treatment plan formulation that has to be done in the proper way. We cannot optimize the case with MIPP without having start in this way. So that's the reason why I would like to show you that today we have used a kind of app that we have created already a few months ago that is an easy tool to guide the clinician to the formulation of the treatment plan. Why? Because at this point you can have really an effective communication with your lab, with your dental technician in order to let them know what we need to change in the initial case, and also communicating with the dental team like implantologists, orthodontists, and discuss with them what we do in this case. So, and also an effective communication with the patient and a possible integration with other digital workflow systems. So that is an app that helps you in achieving this result. First of all, you can have a guided photography. Just using the iPad, you can take the picture having the two levels, one horizontal level, another or vertical level, to really have the chance, once you have found the natural head position of the patient, you have the chance to really create the proper picture that is repeatable each time at the same position. And then be guided by a mask. We have a mask for each position of the picture. And that is made again only with the iPad. You don't need another camera. And the iPad is perfect and that is already selected for that. Then, not just a picture, we also all the movie, full smile, F sound, S sound, rest position. Movies are very important because remember that picture doesn't speak to you completely. Picture is a static moment, represent the static moment of a dynamic action that can be really catch only by the movie. The help of the movie is incredible. Now, all the steps you know on the aesthetic rehabilitation are, in this case, reproduced here. You see that we have all these steps that are important to understand. That is on the face, on the dental label analysis, on the dental analysis. And that is the reason why in this patient that shows this not very pleasant smile due to the shortness of the teeth and the color of the teeth, we started to use this Get Up, this application that we made just recently in the daily practice in order to really have the chance to move from traditional to digital workflow. Traditional workflow was done by myself, at least, with my aesthetic checklist lab chart that I have already positioned in my two books that we have done, first volume and second volume. But today we, of course, like to move to digital workflow. Even though it's 2D, 3D, it's very, very helpful with this app. So we started with the aesthetic analysis. And of course, aesthetic analysis and the function analysis should be done before using any kind of burr, without having started any kind of work on patient. So we have to analyze as first, to have a data collection. Once you have collected all the data, through the picture, through the movie that we have explained before, thanks to the iPad setup, with the mask that we have discussed, with the level that we have discussed, at this point we have a lot of references. So you can have the chance to really work on that. So we start with the facial analysis, guided by Get Up. We have all the measurement. You can work on this, facial proportion. You will be guided by the green, orange, and the red colors in order to be able to know if your road in treatment plan will be the ideal one, of course in green, acceptable one with a compromise in orange, and absolutely not good when you have red lines or red circles. So at this point, or red numbers, of course. And at this point, you have all the chance to really check the facial proportion, the incisal profile, look at the occlusal plane orientation, and again looking at all these steps on the dentolabial analysis. In this case, we don't show at all any teeth, so the tooth exposure at rest was really not present. We have at this point the chance to see what are the initial values of length and width of the upper teeth at exposure at rest, and then we analyze the smile. After having analyzed the tooth exposure at rest, the smile line, if it's low, average, high, or gamma smile line, the labial corridor, if it's wide, for example, allow you to have the chance to really increase also the size of arch, and the entire arch also to the back side on posterior area. And that will be remembered by the app itself. You don't have to remember yourself. The app has a big, big brain and automatically will give you the final result without having the chance to really think about it. If you don't want it, it can give to you exactly all the final outcome, all the final number without having the chance to talk to you. So at this point, that's what the smile of the patient. And then finally, we started with the dental analysis. In the dental analysis, we sign all the wear that we have at this point. We check the exposure at rest, the dimension of the teeth, the color, and the arrangement together with the patient. And we started with that, with these kind of numbers, and we see that we have a ratio that is absolutely wrong, and this in a red circle shows you that. It means that we have a short teeth and no exposure at rest. And having the chance to have this patient in front of you, you can see that the width is more evident than the length. So we have an incredible situation that is not the ideal one. It's 109 ratio between width and length. Automatically the app, thanks to all the value that we put inside, signing all these numbers, create for you the ideal final outcome. Now the length is 10.7, the exposure at rest was 1.8, all green numbers, all green ratio now is 80%. So automatically you have the new proportion of the teeth. And of course that allows you also to find the entire curvature of the incisal edge and extension to the posterior area, to the cuspids and to the bicuspids and molar. So at this point you can optimize the level, you can add again the length also on the posterior area to harmonize the entire occlusal plane orientation, keeping the numbers you see before, 10.7 in length, 1.8 in final tooth exposure at rest. So at this point also you define the incisal edge not just from the frontal view, but also from the lateral view with some tests. And remember that normally we have 90% of degree between the camper plane and between the long axis of the central incisor. In this particular case, for example, we have less than 90 degrees, and that means that you can go out, and the application automatically gives to you how much you can go more far away, more buccal. At this point, you can have maybe the chance to have some help on that, because the app gives to you the chance to have more buccal position of your final teeth of 0.5, maybe 1 millimeter. At this point, you know that you don't need to prepare the teeth so much, because you have already the thickness you need for your restoration without preparing. So going back to the case, that was the initial case, that's what the wear analysis that we have done. Short teeth due to the attrition on the upper and the lower arch, anteriorly and posteriorly. So at this point, we need to have a data processing. So we start the treatment plan formulation, asking ourselves, do you need to lengthen the upper teeth? How much? Do you need to lengthen the lower? How much? And do you need to increase the VDO? How much and where? Upper or lower? And that is a very important step. Normally, all these decisions are unfortunately made by the technician, that many dentists believe they are a kind of magician. They are not magicians. They are great, talented guys, but they need some information that normally we don't give them too much. So Get Up can help the clinician in determining where to add the length of the upper anteriors. For example, many times people believe that they want to stay just on the to elongate the teeth on the incisal, but most of the time we need to elongate also on the cervical. Once you have defined the incisal edge position, at this point you can lengthen on the other side cervically. And of course that is written also on the app. You see incisal lengthening and marginal cervical shift. That is also the buccal position, can be more or less. All the decision has to be done, and then analyzing the MI-CR discrepancy. All these cases are made in central relation position. We have to remove the posterior interferences to the new anterior guidance that will be able to create it. And then we have at the end the functional setup, still guided by Get Up. At this point, you have to create the overbite-overjet ratio that will be optimized. Remember that normally the white strip is normally the overjet that is counted by the clinician, but the real one is the functional overjet. The functional overjet is the red one, that is very, very minimal one. And that has to be considered, that has to be improved. So all these are what we can have at the end, all the measurement, and all the number the Get Up gives to you automatically. All green number on the left side, you see. All green number to me that is perfect treatment plan. And that is what we suggest to the dental technician. But again, we can have the chance also to say that that has possible customized value. And you see from this, you can have the chance, the dotted line is the initial case, the red final line is the final case that Get Up did it, but now you can push upper and you can modify the length. You see that all the numbers become maybe red that were before green, and now you can move and optimize as you like. This is a kind of rendering that you can show to the patient, you can show the dental technician, you can show to other people. You can move the teeth upper and lower, more buccally, more lingually, lengthening, shortening, all automatically, all the numbers change, and then you have to push the red button. You have all the explanation. It's like an ebook behind. So you have the chance for each screenshot to have an explanation of what you're doing. So it's a kind of ebook behind that. That I think is perfect for everybody. Now we have all the modification we need to do it. And that has to transfer to dental technician. 1 millimeter more out, buccally, upper and lower, and the kind of restoration you made. The initial overjet, the final overjet, the initial overbite, final overbite, and the video alteration. Now, what kind of restoration want to do it? At this point, you see that this is a possible prosthetic option that you can have it, and you can have an effective communication with the laboratory for analog and digital works up at this point. All the numbers you have here can be sent by the PDF to dental technician. And once you receive the dental, this kind of PDF, you can have the chance at this point to upload. In a few seconds, you have the chance to upload all the case. At this point, you have the chance to see that you have to dental technician all the information, picture, videos, all the remaining stuff. The technician can have it, all the information they needed to really follow your indication how to modify the initial case for your workshop. Remember, the workshop is the prototype for your final work of your treatment plan. All the values are there, and the technician can copy perfectly. Now, possible integration with other digital workflow system? Of course it's possible. And of course it's possible you can still have the GetUp values, and you can have the chance to still use the analog way or go directly to the digital, having the digital articulator, digital Facebook. That is from Dr.T in this case. You have the chance to really have the possibility to have the workshop made thanks to the GetUp values. So you can be digital workshop, we can change all the value initially taken thanks to the value that we have obtained through GetUp. That is what is the final result of the patient. Now I've increased the vertical dimension 3.5 millimeters anteriorly. We have started, of course, the workshop on anterior area, and of course, when you do extensive rehabilitation, we start with the incisor position of the lower teeth, of the upper teeth, and then we have the orientation of occlusal planes, the VDO determination, it increased normally, the occlusal stability on posteriors in CR, and the anterior guidance that exclude the posterior teeth. All these are indications for dental technicians that are needed. So with the mock-up, we obtain occlusal stability, the exclusion of posterior teeth through the mock-up, so it's a prototype of a final work. Remember, the final length was 10.7, and we have 10.69 with the mock-up. So it's a 3 millimeter 0.5 of increase, more or less, and we increased 3.5 also the video. And that is the prototype ready to be copied 100%. With the mock-up, the patient was very happy. Is yes, derived from the workshop, but the workshop is designed and guided by GetUp again. So the patient was very happy, smiling completely. Then we cut back and we don't touch the teeth most of the time with the calibrated reduction. With additive 100%, we have preserved the tooth structure. Why should I prepare the teeth? We should just design the margins with the burr, very, we're refining the margin area, but not cutting, not really grinding the teeth, just refining, assign the margin for my dental technician. In this way, we have a really minimal intervention. We just open here, this area here, interproximally to comprehend some composite interproximally. In the lower arch, the preparation seems to be not done at all, but the initial and final two preparation are really minimal. We just open the two parts. All the remaining steps were with the buccal occlusal veneers. You see that we didn't go back to the lingual part. We just increased the height. So it was occlusal and buccal coverage, like you see in this case, buccal occlusal veneer. Most of the time we try to keep the contact point, and we prepare in this way. We keep enamel 100% if we could, and we cement with insertion that is an oblique insertion most of the time. So enamel preservation, thanks to the video increase, the lingual part were not touched at all. So we maintain, of course, with this full veneer. We don't call crown this because are not prepared on dentin. We didn't prepare at all the lingual, so we call full veneer or extended veneer. We have enamel everywhere. We try to have 100% of enamel with this moderate prep, and we have the chance then to have a very thin thickness, 0.2, often analyze the case the proper way, before and after with a different color, with the MIPP technique, with no anesthesia for all the steps. And that is the lateral view of the frontal areas with some details, thanks to the ability of our technician, Giancarlo Baducci did a great job as ever, and the nice material that we have used. Lateral view again, rest position initial at delivery, smile progression before and after, smile progression on the lateral view, disclusion of posterior teeth. Remember that we have interferences before, now we have the posterior disclusion. And still, the final outcome, a couple of months after, and the new smile of the patient that really enjoy the new situation. So, thank you again and join us on FredianiEducation.com. Thank you again.